Have you ever felt like you're on the precipice of understanding something truly profound about yourself, yet it remains just out of reach? That's where Jeffrey Brunk comes in, a shamanic healer, Usui Reiki master, and spiritual counselor who will share his wisdom and understanding of the delicate balance of light and shadow. Explore the unseen realms with Jeffrey as your guide, one who has traversed these paths, facing his own wounds to emerge as an everyday shaman. Jeffrey's journey through shamanic practice, shadow work, and energy healing unveils the intricate ways in which these forces shape our physical, spiritual, and emotional well-being. Whether you're taking the initial steps towards inner betterment or you're further along on your path, there is something within this podcast that will resonate with you. Delve into the essence of what it means to navigate life's challenges with an everyday shaman's insight and discover the joy and purpose that can be found even in chaos. Join the Everyday Shaman in an extraordinary journey in which we will explore topics that could very well change the way you perceive the dance of light and shadow in your life and the world around you. A journey to greater self-awareness and the unseen world around us. Welcome to the Everyday Shaman.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Everyday Shaman. Thank you for joining me. Today, I have a special guest with me. It's Mimi Luquis. She's from Central Florida, not far from Orlando, or is it in Orlando?
It's in Orlando. Yes, it is.
In Orlando. And I've actually worked with Mimi and her mom, Carmen, around 4 years ago with some issues within their home, within her mom's home and land. Mimi is the daughter of Carmen, and she is a mother of 4 grown kids. She's a husband, has a very loving husband, and her mom is now 86. 86.
Yes.
And her mom is now 86 years old. Yeah, which is amazing because she's a very spirited person, probably doesn't act her age at all. But they had contacted me a few years ago about issues, and I'm very happy to have Mimi on the show with me here today. This will be an episode not like any others that's been done and should appeal, I hope, to people who are interested in the spirit realms and maybe even a lot of the comedies that I call the ghost hunter shows. So, Mimi, it's nice to have you here. Appreciate you joining me.
Nice to be here. Thank you.
Yeah. So you're in Florida. You're near Orlando, or is it near Kissimmee?
Well, it is Orlando. It's Winter Park.
Winter Park. Okay.
Yeah.
We will get down there at one point, I promise, to have that meal because
exactly. We have to get together.
Yeah. So 4 years ago, I can't believe it's been that long. I can still remember the journeys, a lot about them. And you have mentioned that you kind of went back and read the summaries of the journeys. And so I just would like to kind of hear from you what you and your mom were going through, what she was going through, especially because I know you were a part of this the whole time as well, because I believe I was in contact with you more so than your mom at the time, or with as far as emailing and things go. And but to see what things were like then and how things are going now, I'm really curious because I don't always get to hear that from people.
All right. Well, let me start by saying that my mom was always a true sensitive, but she was always denying and rebuting everything that you do with spirituality because she grew up scared of things. She saw a young age with her grandmother practicing spiritualism and black magic. So that's what scared her off on that. And she said, nope, not doing it, not looking at that.
Black magic, really?
Yeah, she would do everything. So at the time that she needed the help, when she was 82 years old, that's when she came to me, the things that were happening to her. She had activity in her house for about 8 months, and it was driving her crazy, and everything was getting worse and worse and worse. So she was going to sleep at night, and she started feeling movement underneath her bed, starting at the area of the footrest, as if underneath the mattress, going up to her back area. She started hearing footsteps under her bed. And she says, that's weird. Like, why do I feel footsteps under the bed? Mm-hmm. So this was ongoing for 3 to 4 hours, making her lose sleep, that she wasn't resting at all, to the point that she was calling me and saying, in tears, she says, I just can't take it anymore. So she just wanted the spirits to go away, do whatever, because I can't take it. So she also saw a man walking by her bedroom door towards the bathroom when she saw a bright light shine through the door in that bathroom. She had also seen a lady that stood in front of her bedside and looked at her and said the word anger. And she repeated that twice. And then she disappeared before her eyes. At times, she would sometimes see and was waken up by a little girl rubbing her foot and tickling them, laughing. And then my husband and I started to think more about that. And we said, well, maybe she's haunted. Her bed is haunted or something. So we went and we bought her a bed, a new bed to see. And it worked for one night.
An exercise
The
bed.
second night, everything was up again. She was woken up also by a male voice saying kindly, "Hi, Carmen." He started to disappear. She says that his face was half disfigured because of a burned face.
Mm-hmm.
The following night, sleeping in the other bedroom that she had, trying to find if she could have a choir to sleep that night, the activity came about and it followed her. The same activity under the bed. She went to the recliner. She says, well, let me see if I can go to the recliner. And she felt everything behind her recliner. They were shaking her. They were, and she would hear the footsteps and everything like that. So the day that we got her the bed that night, it was a wonderful night. But then the activity started again that next night. So all in all, I wish badly that she would get good night's sleep again. The restlessness was taking a toll on her, making her feel so helpless. So this is when you, Jeff, came in to the rescue by cleansing the home and the land.
Yeah, I'm curious to know how, because I don't quite remember. How did you find me?
The thing was that I was so desperate to help her. And at that time, remember, it was COVID
Yes.
season and stuff. So it was hard to find anybody to help. So even people that had places that you could go to, they were locked. They were locked down. Nobody was attending to anything. Everything was out of season,
Mm-hmm.
So I said, oh my God, I have to find something. Spiritualist, something. And then I said, or even a shaman. And when I looked and I said, let me search for that. And your name came up and I said, oh, so I started looking at your profile and your page. And I said, wow, that looks interesting. I said, that sounds good. And everything that it said. And I said, this is what she needs. So that's when I contacted you and I said, blah, blah, blah. And I told you everything that was happening. And then when you reached out, I said, well, then I have to go to her house because we don't live together. I have my home with my husband. So I said, I'll schedule with you the time. And we did. And after that, everything went well.
Yeah.
We started doing everything.
I think it took a couple of different journeys.
It did. It
Yeah.
did indeed.
But I even, as I was mentioning earlier to you before we began, that so much of those sticks out to me. After 4 years without even having reread the summaries, I still remember so much of like the sigils and the different energies that were in the house. And a lot of people would call them ghosts.
Yeah.
But that's not what I call them because I think that sort of trivializes what they actually are, what these things are. But they weren't all malevolent, were they?
Exactly. No, they weren't. The thing that I liked about the journeys or your journeys was that it was very precise and the reports were like, whoa, that would blow me away how, you experienced everything and you talked about it. And that was like very good for me to understand and for her because I would have to explain it to her. She was like not up there spiritually, but she did open up and she started opening up to spirituality itself. So that was a positive for that.
Okay. Yeah. So from having gone because of the black magic and the things in the past, not that she had performed, but seeing that she had sort of walked away from the spirituality type of mindset.
Yeah, that's right.
So she was easy prey, I guess, for at least malevolent, but also being a sensitive, kind of like a moth to a flame type thing for sensitives, that it's not just the negative, lower vibrational things that are attracted. It's the higher vibrational energies that are coming to her, whether you want to call it looking for help or looking to, for help in returning to, call it the light or the consciousness or whatever it may be, being whole again. I kind of go on about there's more that we can't see than we can see with our eyes open. And it's the same on the other side. There's more that they see within us that we see within ourselves a lot of times. So whether she was not in that mindset at the time really didn't matter. It's part of who she was or who she is.
Exactly. And that's exactly what you explained, that she's a beacon of light, because of her spirituality indeed. So she had that, whether she wanted it or not, she was a beacon. And that's why things are drawn to her, both high and low vibrations.
Does she have people in, or yourself too? Because you were born in call. You have
Uh-huh.
gifts of your own, and I understand that because I was also born that way. And have people come up to you, or does she have people come up to her? Because it's funny to me because I can just go to the gas station and have people walk up, perfect strangers, and just start talking.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, I've got a lot of people behind me here that want to pull in, and they'll not care. Cashiers at the checkout in a store, they'll just tell me their life story, and I just let them talk. And
That's right.
it's like they need somebody. Do you see that with her or with yourself?
Yes, indeed. And then when you were doing the work with her, you saw that under her bed there were imps.
Yeah,
And
the idiots of the dark elements. Yeah.
yeah, they say they wreak havoc by drawing in menacing, dark energies. And then you concluded the cleansing by saying that you were told that the reason for activity increase was not only her home, but across the earth, due to the collective fear and uncertainty as well because of the COVID that was going on. And that's true, because when this started really bad for mom, I would say that it was at the time of COVID because she was very stressed and she felt like left out in life, because she had to be hiding in her apartment. Nobody could visit and stuff like that. So she really went down and she was suffering that. And that's when everything started. All the things that were the boogeyman and all that, like they say, everything started coming out at her. And I think it was because of the low vibration that she went into, because of that.
And that's what the imps are, sort of the highest, not the highest level in hierarchy, but closest to our realm. And they're the ones that I compare them in appearance to, and it's not exactly the same. The closest I can get for people to understand maybe an appearance is like the Gollum. Even though I've not seen Lord of the Rings, I've seen the ugly little Gollum thing. But much smaller. And they hide. They hide in corners. They hide under beds. They hide wherever they can. But they just kind of they can cause stress and cause fear and like you were saying, or not being able to sleep and things. And then that allows that darkness to find the smallest vulnerabilities and weaknesses within somebody that may be very strong, and that can snowball.
Yeah.
So it could start with an anxiety that's slight, but then work on the mind, which then works on the body and causes physical issues over time if not addressed.
Exactly.
So how is the place now? Because if I remember correctly too,
it's better, but as a sensitive, she is receiving still and she doesn't want to. But I've kind of walked her through that. And I said, Mom, this is yours. Because she goes, why do you mean it's mine? I said, because you are a sensitive. You're a beacon of light. They're going to see you as that beacon of light, and their spirits are going to reach out to you for help for whatever reason. So as long as your vibration is high, you're going to receive the best of it. And you will receive low entities as well. But if your energy is high, you can fight it. So she's starting, she's kind of understanding the things, but she still doesn't want. But she's doing it. She's doing it. And I'm proud in that sense because it's been working good for her. Now she hears people singing. They sing to her.
It's not you, right? Because you're a singer too.
Yeah, right. So she says, sometimes I'm listening to music and then at night I hear the same music they're singing to me. And she
That's
says,
not unusual. That's really not
Right.
unusual to hear singing. I've heard singing for a long time, and I've been hearing it more and more frequently. And I can tell it's music, but I don't have music playing. And my wife can't hear it, and no one else can hear it, but I hear it. And that probably, for a lot of people, maybe even with your mom, kind of freak them out, thinking, oh, am I going nuts? I'm hearing things, you
Yeah.
know? But that's actually sort of a good thing when it's music, unless it's like dark Damien Omen music type things. But the things that she's sensitive to now that are still drawn to her, they're not dark, are they? Are they?
No, no.
Yeah,
And she's not scared of it now.
good.
That's a positive. She hears the footsteps still. She says, here they're coming. They're coming right now. I hear them and stuff like that. But she's dealing with it. And she goes, what do you want? Kind of thing. And she's going, about her day pleasantly and everything like that. But she is aware that they're there. And that's okay.
Yeah. So she's taking control of that fear
Yes,
and
she is.
anxiety she had before, because that's key, because
Uh-huh.
we have it within our power here
Hmm.
on this realm as humans to take control of that. And I always tell people to embrace those darker, those shadowy things, especially
Uh-huh.
the ones that are within us, like fear and anxiety and even anger, and to recognize them, to be aware of them, and then to embrace them
Hmm.
as being part of who you are. And it makes you stronger, and it takes those elements of shadow and darkness, and you sort of are able to use them as a tool, as a weapon against things that are even darker.
Hmm.
So it's good to hear that she's in control of those things now, and they're not in control of her.
Exactly.
And that's really hard for most people to do. So
Hmm.
for her to be doing that and have maintained that for 4 years now,
Hmm.
tell her I give her my compliments, or I give her my admiration for doing that, because it's a lot of people just give up for a month or a couple of weeks even, because it's hard. It's a change of lifestyle in a way.
It is. It is.
Now, you mentioned that you've been studying different aspects of spirituality for quite a number of years. How has that led you, knowing that you were born in call, knowing that you had gifts and that you were told about as a young child?
Uh-huh.
How has that brought you along through your life and through that period 4 years ago, and then where you are now?
Very positively, because it was an eye opener, and it was the aha moment, like, oh, finally, I get it now. Because even when I was a child, I would have dreams. And every night I had a constant dream, and it was, I would say, like an angel. She would appear to me, and then she had this beautiful glow, and then the air around her was like, sucking the energy of everything that was around her, to the point that she would open her arms, and it almost looks like the virgin that would open her eyes, her arms with the flashes of light coming through.
Hmm.
But I would call that she was an angel. And she would reach out to me and she would go like, come. And that's when I would freak out in the dream and go, no. And then she was like pulling me towards her. And then I would wake up. And I had that dream every single night. And sometimes I didn't want to go to sleep. So
Was it
that,
because you were a child and just were
yes,
afraid of
yes.
this,
I was
or
4 years old around that time.
curious, what color did she emanate?
She was it was like white with gold around her, and it had like, I wouldn't say blue, but it was like kind of bluish, but it was more like white. Very, very beautiful. So to the years, and then things that had happened to me after that, as a grown woman, was that I kept receiving things and I didn't know why. I had like the knowing, what they call the knowing. Don't ask me why I know this, but I know it. And I would tell people, this is going to happen, or this is this. And then it would come true. And an example of that was that I have a sister in law. When she got married, the day before she was getting married, I received this thing that tells me she's going to have trouble having babies. And I go, oh, wow. So I kind of put my best effort, my intention for that not to happen, and pulling that, that positive energy around her. So the wedding goes and everything's perfect. And then years later, she gets pregnant. And then eventually she loses the first baby. The second time that she was pregnant, she was, scary and blah, 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 but things were going well. The doctor was, they were doing very prominent things that were going to hold that baby in. But then again, she lost it. The thing is that when I received the message, it says she's going to have problems having babies. She's going to have 4 or 3 babies. The third one is going to be born, but it's like the third or the fourth, something like that. And I said, I don't get that. It's like the fourth, but it's like the third, but it's also the fourth. So I said, okay, so she's either going to lose the third and going to have the fourth, or it's going to be, troublesome for both pregnancies. So the night that she calls me, that she went to the doctor and she was out of danger zone, and they said, okay, everything's going well, you're going to have the baby and blah blah blah. So the next day I called the brother-in-law because it was his birthday, and I'm saying, yeah, I spoke with Pinky last night and she was so happy, and she's out of the blue, with the pregnancies. And he says, oh, you didn't know? And I said, didn't know what? She lost it. I said, oh my God. But then he told me, he said, but wait, hold on. She was pregnant with twins. So
Wow.
she lost one and they kept the other one. So I go, oh, that's the answer to it's either 3 or the 4. So she was pregnant with twins and she didn't know it. And so she lost one of them. And that was like, blew me away. I said, oh my God, how did I know all this, So I said, I have to do something with this because, things are happening. They're telling me stuff and I want to help. And then
Yeah.
at a point in Puerto Rico, my mom had a party and she had some friends invited over and blah, blah, blah. And I didn't know this guy that was there. And she had talked to me about him. And she said, oh, he trying to befriend this girl, and she doesn't want him. And I said, really? And then she goes, okay, they're both going to be there. I want you to see him because he is so sweet. So I met him and I see that, and I said, oh yeah, he is a very sweet guy. And then as he leaves, he says, oh, so glad to meet you. And he shook hands with me. And as I shook hands with him, something told me he's so good, but it's a shame that he's dead. And I go, what? And oh my God, I started praying and praying and praying, wishing him well and all of that. The next day I call mom, or mom calls me at work, and she says, oh, did you see the guy last night? I said, yeah, I did. She goes, Mimi, he left home last night and he died in an accident. And that, oh my God, I said, definitely I have to go into this knowledge of spiritualism, see how I can help people, because it's too much for me to
Yeah.
handle. Maybe I could have said something and avoid that from happening, but
It's sort of a blessing and a curse too, though,
yeah,
because I call them knowings too. And
yeah,
there's a difference between a knowing and a belief.
exactly.
Belief is an ego-based thing that's created, because of something you hear or read or taught. But the knowing, you feel it in your body. So like by shaking his hand,
Mhm.
there's a gift there that you have that it took me a long time to get over hesitation of
Mhm.
talking about knowings to people because most will roll their eyes or just totally brush it off.
Uh-huh.
When things do happen, they'll come back and say, oh, you were right. And did you find it, or have you ever found it difficult to think, oh, well, they're going to laugh at me, or they're going to think I'm off my rocker or whatever by telling these things? Because when you are given these messages, and they can be very helpful to people,
Mhm.
you're not giving them just for your own knowledge. You have to pass them along. For me, it was difficult when I started doing this and being really honest about things in the summaries and talking to people. Some have to be blunt.
Mhm.
And I always say, hey, I'm just a messenger. you know,
Exactly.
I'm the vessel. It just comes through me. I'm not the one, I'm not making this up, when I'm
Mhm.
telling you this. But have you ever found that type of thing to come up and just you sort of shy back from saying or sharing that knowing with people? Has that happened with you, or did it early on?
It did. It did indeed. And the other thing that I went through was telling people things that would happen to them, in the sense that I have 2 sister-in-laws at different times. They were pregnant, they had the babies, and they said, okay, this is the last one. I said, no, it's not. You're going to have 2 more. And they go, what? What do you, no, I am not going to have 2 more. And get there again, 2 more. Before I left Puerto Rico coming to Florida, the other sister-in-law, she had a baby. I went to the hospital, saw it, and I said, okay, a beautiful baby. That was her second child. And when I leave, I said, so good luck, and good luck for the next one that's coming. And she goes, no, I'm not having any more, and blah, blah, blah. I said, before this baby turns a year, you're going to be pregnant. 2 months after, she was pregnant.
You're like a
And
walking human pregnancy test.
yeah. So she called me. She was, you got me pregnant. I said, no, I did not. She says, you're a witch. You're
Oh
a
gosh.
witch. Oh
You
my
like saying
goodness.
that. Monty Python. She's a witch. Yeah. I have spoken to a lot of Wiccans, and it's not all black magic, and
Mhm.
most of it is earth medicine that they practice, which is, it's good. It's with good intention, and like you were saying, it's the intention behind things. Like when you were talking about wanting to help your friend and using the intention, it's like prayer. I call it prayer on steroids.
Mhm.
On a
Exactly.
journey. It's so focused, and the intention is you strictly take yourself and your ego, your own self, and anything going on out of the equation and focus all of that on the betterment of the other person.
Hmm.
And I believe it's hard for a lot of people to understand how important that is. And then when they try it, a lot of people find it very, very difficult to do because everything today it's just a chaotic world. There's social media, there's television, there's everything going on. It's so much static that they can't quiet their mind to focus their intention.
Exactly.
Do you have a method you go through to be able to do that, or does it just come flooding in?
It normally comes, natural, I would say
I'll
there.
get I'll get things like that. If I see a headline, because I don't watch news. I can't stand it. It's not news, it's opinion. I'll just scroll through in the mornings, once in the mornings, once in the evenings, just to see what happened during the day and what happened. And I'll see headlines and just, I kind of know what's coming in a lot of different ways. And I've always been that way with weather, especially. I stood out in thunderstorms and not gotten wet before, just using intention but knowing where it's coming from and looking on a beautiful day and saying, it's going to rain later. Just, it's something as simple as that.
Yeah.
And then started, now it's like you need to drum up some rain. you know um but that's one of the end call gifts that I've always had since I was a little kid.
Wow.
And my uncle and I were very close, and he was 16 when he died by an accidental gunshot wound.
Mhm.
And I remember sitting at his casket at the funeral home, sitting on a step and talking to him. He was right there. It's like he was right there with me. But he and I were very close, and I was only 8 or 9 at the time.
Mhm.
And I'm sure I was looked at. I know my parents had me tested for something when I was young, but even younger than that. So in your family, I'm sure it's accepted. They understand with you.
Yes.
How about with friends or coworkers or anyone else that you encountered? What type of you
Well,
know
they know, and sometimes they even come to me for advice. and, and sometimes I don't have that advice because what they're looking for. But they do look up to me in a sense that sometimes they can't find an answer to their problem, and they come to me, and when I talk to them, it's like they go, "Oh, wow, you helped me so much." And sometimes years after, I know that this person is very grateful to me of something that I said. And I said, what did I say? And I said, okay, well, then that's, I would say, spirit, talking to me and conveying that answer of what they need to hear at that point.
when this first started happening, you get these messages from spirit or like the divine
Uh-huh.
or God, who whatever you choose to call it.
Exactly.
Did you not, was there a time where it was like, okay, I received this information, but you didn't share it? And then they keep coming because they don't relent.
Right.
There's
Yeah,
something that needs to go out there.
it
They're
does
going to make
happen
sure it
a
gets
lot.
out there. What's that?
It does happen a lot to me. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the thing is that also I grew up and I was very shy, extremely shy. So I'm a observer of a person. It's like I don't open blurt out what I think. I just look, I study the situation, and I'm very quiet to put out something that I already know or that I feel or I receive. So sometimes, they're telling me, especially in this spiritual place that I'm going, they say you have to open up, you have to say, you have to speak out because if not, it won't flow. And I go, yeah, I know. But sometimes it's because I'm trying myself in the sense that I don't trust it. And then it happens. And then I said, okay, so I could have trusted it.
Yeah, and it
So,
takes a little while to get past that
yeah.
initial fear of, because I remember when I wrote my book, it took me a month or so to write the last chapter because I guess deep down, I didn't want to finish it because I was afraid when it came out, people would read that and go, oh, well, that's not the Jeff that I remember. He's off his rocker now. He's talking to, he's talking to Jibril and Raphael and
Exactly.
all of this stuff. But I was guided to do that, just like I was guided to do this podcast to
Hmm.
get the word out. And it's not something that's comfortable because one, don't like my voice, and I'm usually very quiet about things too.
Hmm.
But I know the feeling of being booted when you don't listen.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
We call it the
That's
universal boot. And when you don't listen, after a while, you're forced to listen.
mm-hmm.
So I hope you never got the boot because that
Yeah,
was
no.
that was a rough time.
Something that helped me along the way is that I started writing, natural writing, like I say, spirit writing,
Oh,
and
the automatic writing?
yeah, the automatic writing. I hear, and sometimes I question it at the moment that I hear it, and I go, "What? This?" And then they repeat the same thing, and I go, "Yes," and I go, "Are you for real?" And they mention it again, the same words. So as soon as I hear the words and I started writing them, then it flows. And it's almost like a dictation
Mm-hmm.
because I'm just listening and listening and writing. I don't even know what I'm writing at the time because then I have to sit and read it. I said, oh my God. So I know it's not me, because sometimes they say no, because it could be your words, but no, sometimes even the language is different. It's not
Yeah.
the vocabulary that I use. So, and sometimes I even have to look the words because they're like antique words, like I say, that, in the olden days that I didn't know about those words. And then I'm writing about it. And I said, what does this mean? And I have to look it up. And then I
Yeah.
said, oh, okay. And it made sense in the sentence that I was receiving.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hope you're enjoying this episode of the Everyday Shaman. If you'd like to learn more about me, shamanism, Usui Reiki, shadow work, read testimonials, schedule a free video chat for Q&A, or even schedule a shamanic healing session for yourself, visit www.everydayshaman.net. That's www.everydayshaman.net. Now enjoy the rest of the show. And it's important, I think, for people to understand, too, that automatic writing is not channeling.
Mm-hmm.
Channeling is really opening yourself up, receiving. The divine and the light never lies either.
Exactly.
So things that one might receive, you might receive, I might receive, that doesn't sit well with you, causes fear, it causes anxiety, it causes anger. That's not divine knowledge, or that's not divine information coming there. Fear in the way of, it may be fearful at first to hear things. I had a young guy come to me, drove an hour and a half or so to come and just talk about voices he was hearing.
Mm-hmm.
And he pretty afraid. He was fearful. And I said, well, are they telling you bad things? Or are they telling you to do harmful things to yourself? He said, no. He said, they're very encouraging. They're saying, you're on the right path. Keep doing what you're doing. And I said, that's good. Keep listening. Said, it's when they tell you and you hear, you need to do something bad to someone else or to yourself. That is not the divine speaking to you. And everyone knows within themselves, if they listen, what is true and what is not. Because that little piece of light, that divine's in all of us. That's what connects us all.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, because it's always amazed me with automatic writing, how that's done. And I'll just be frank right here. I did a little over a year ago, I did an ego death mushroom trip.
Okay.
I had my phone with me. Someone had mentioned to me, keep your phone beside you in case you want to record something.
Mm-hmm.
And I started talking. And Pam, my wife, can verify all this, but I recorded it as a 4-minute conversation. But it was like I was talking to myself, but it's in this language that I have no idea what it is. And I've tried to find it, but I knew at the time exactly what was being said. that's where I also saw the portals in the house where I was talking to you before about seeing where my dog would lay and stare. We have so many orbs in the house and all, but seeing all these portals and seeing everything connected together. I had seen that before early on, before I really had gotten into what I do. I had seen that, and I had seen trees composed of numbers like eights and fives, and it was just bizarre. And just in the middle of the day, driving down the road, I just remember that. But seeing the colors of things and knowing their meaning. But it's paying attention to those things because everything, whether it's a color or a number, or they all have a meaning to it. And it's just for, it could be just for you or something that's just for you to share. Do you find you know which one it is, whether it's for you or for someone else that you're meant to share things with?
Mm-hmm.
Do you sometimes get things that you're meant to share with a great number of people?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I've had that with symbols. I go about everything that I receive either in a dream, which is a symbol, or something I go by, and or even like words in a billboard. That for me is a symbol of something that, I'm searching for, or they just give it to me and I go, huh, and it brings me the memory of this person. And I'm not thinking about that person, but that billboard or everything that I see at that moment, it tells me something about this person that came into my mind at that point. So I'm thinking, okay, this is for this person.
Yeah.
So
So you also probably have those moments, and these still kind of, I still think they're so cool. I'll think of someone, it's like, I need to contact this person. And then a message comes in from them at the same time.
exactly,
You
exactly.
know, there's more to that. I don't believe in coincidence. There are
No, that's
synchronicities.
right. Me neither.
There's synchronicities in life, and every single day, if we pay attention to them, we pick them up.
Hmm.
And do you find it be more of a blessing or a curse? Because it sounds like you're very open to receiving like 24 hours a day.
Yeah. I don't have the answers. Yes, you do. My daughter says. My daughter is now looking into the spirituality because she's been through a lot with her thyroid and all that she's going through. She had lots of ups and downs with that. And I said, you know what? You really need to look into your spirituality. And I got up some books so she could understand more about it. And it opened her up so good that now I even look for advice with her because she's very open. She's very keen to seeing the signs. And she goes, oh my God, look, I saw this sign and this means this. So I go, wow. Very proud of the advancement that she's been doing spiritually.
So this is really runs deep in your family. Does it go back beyond your mom?
She has a sister that's a spiritualist too, that grandmother that she didn't enjoy being with her,
Mhm.
and my sister as well, even my husband.
Really?
Yeah.
That's great though,
Yeah.
because he's open and accepting of your gifts.
Exactly. At the beginning, he didn't understand it, and he wasn't. But then he kind of went with me one day. I said, come with me, so you'll see what it is. And as he went in, oh my God, it was like he was there forever. So he kind of got it there, and then he started going with me to the places.
Yeah.
It's good, and it opened it up for him.
Wow. You got a little family business right there.
Right?
And do you believe that ancestrally, because it sounds like it's passed up an ancestral tree, possibly on both of your sides,
Yeah.
but from Puerto Rico, and I don't know what maybe had been practiced aside from the black magic, which intention can be used either way.
Hmm.
Either one of us could say, and I've been tempted at times, to be honest, with certain things to go, I need to go on the dark, I need to turn to the dark side on this one, but I don't, because that would not be one, the right thing to do. And two, it would come back to bite me in the butt because, what you put out good in the world comes back, and what you put out bad in the world comes back tenfold,
Hmm.
because there is that ripple effect. But do you find maybe that the history of the family and what was practiced, black magic part aside, has what do you know of aside from, and you've not mentioned this at all, but regular religious, let's say Christian type things have contributed to this or have been practiced? Because there's so many, especially from other cultures, and they all have a central core theme about them.
Hmm.
There's that connection to something greater, something, a divine or a God or but sounds like a clear understanding of what intention is capable of achieving. And today, there's all sorts of books and videos and blah, 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 on intention and manifestation of money and things, but it's not about, at least for me, and I believe for you, that intention being about personal gain of wealth and whatever it may, power, whatever, but of truly helping others.
Exactly. Indeed.
Was there some sort of, within the family line, going back, way back, as far as you know, an intention-based practice that wasn't in line with maybe mainstream religion, which is in a lot of ways not purely intention-based, just here,
exactly.
We're at this place in the program, so we're going to say this, and, but it sounds like a very focused ritualistic, or not ritualistic, in intention-based thing that runs in your family. I didn't know if it was some sort of religious or spiritual practice from the culture.
From the culture, normally it was being Christian, Catholic religion. I grew up actually in a nun's school.
And, well, they had to love you, didn't they?
Yeah. And, very on point, of how they wanted us to see things and stuff like that. And, and all the ritualistic things that you go through in the church. Came the time that, you're over it and you say, no, this is not it. It's not enough. I know there's more. And that's when you start venturing out, looking other ways, but still you keep that Christianity within you. And I think that's what helps for you to decipher, the good and the bad.
Yeah. And there are some very good spiritual people within those walls.
Exactly.
And there's also a ton of hypocrisy and a ton of greed and a ton of control and a lot of fear that is instilled by the church. And when that doesn't sit well, it didn't sit well within me because, seeing people come out the doors on a Sunday, come out after a service and just be happy and smiling, or even within the service, happy and smiling. And then it's just a mask.
And all of that, and talking back at the person that was in there and did this. And yep, I went through that exactly the same way. Yeah. And that's why I said, no, I can't have a kind heart or even a liking to being in a place that should be everything that it says. And then when you walk out the door, you see the negative, you see how people really are. And I said, I don't like this, it wasn't feeling good.
And it wasn't supposed to. But there are good things, people have said, oh, you talk to Jesus. And I'm like, no, he introduced me as Yeshua the first time that I spoke with him. It wasn't Jesus, and he wasn't the Jesus of the Bible. I'll tell you that right now. And not the one that has the picture of the white Jesus hanging on the wall. And I'll say, well, don't you talk to Jesus when you pray? Isn't that what you do? And that kind of shuts them down right there. It's like I felt I needed to learn more about different things. And I still do, because there's always more to learn.
That's right.
It's important to learn, say, like you were mentioning, the black magic, to learn about that, not for practice necessarily, but to understand how it works so you can counter it. Exactly.
Because some people, like you say, they see you reading one thing or the other. Sometimes I even have, when I'm reading books, I cover the cover, the outside, so people can see what I'm reading.
Yeah.
You have the dirty looks, this person is reading this,
Are you still involved with the Catholic Church?
Not really. No, not at all.
Because there are things to be learned, and there are some good aspects. I guess some of the ritualistic things are good as far as developing a habit. But not necessarily the habits they want you to have, not all of them anyway.
I think that I received what I had to receive from the Catholic, and that was what built me up as a person and my tensions in life. It gave me the kindness of seeing the world in a different way, and I kept that. All the negative things that I saw then I just said, nope, that's not me. So I do keep it within me, even though I'm a spiritist, but
I think you have to. You have to see the things that don't set right with you.
Yeah.
Compare those to the knowings that you have and see the difference in order to really discern between the two. Exactly. And be honest and authentic within yourself so you can pass that along to others in an authentic way.
Exactly. Because if you look really deep into the beliefs of any religion, any entity, or anything that teaches you about spiritualism or God or the higher self, anything that teaches you to see that, that's a positive, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so it doesn't matter Buddhism, whatever religion, we all look at the same thing and they don't understand that sometimes. You know, religions don't understand that we're here for the same purpose and that religion is what sets us apart, really, you know, because each religion has their dogmas.
Yes.
So the spiritualism, when at me as a spiritist, helps you to look at that God is every religion. God is everything, you know, because if you see God who he really is, you know, that higher self, it's not a person, you know, it's a force.
Yeah. God is in the bugs and the grass and the
Exactly.
trees
It's
and
a
everything.
force. So when people understand that, then they're going to see what they really need to see.
Does it frustrate you when I'm sure you've had to try to explain this to people.
Yeah.
Does it frustrate you when others, they listen and they get it, but then
Mhm.
they choose not to
Exactly.
practice or look beyond what the physical world shows them,
Yeah.
what their eyes see?
It kind of puts me down, but I know that everybody goes at their own pace, their level of understanding.
Mhm.
So I just see it as it's not their time.
That's the hardest part. And
Mhm.
I do know some that have fallen even into worse places. They were better for a while as far as what was going on with them, but back into habits.
That's true.
But it does get frustrating sometimes to see people not act on what they know they should act on in order to better themselves. And the waiting part is the hardest thing,
Yeah.
waiting for them to be ready and knowing that they may never be ready.
That's sad. That's the part. Yeah. That was one of the things that saddened me in a way of my mom, her trying to avoid all her spirituality. And I said, you know what? It doesn't make sense because when it's a time, she's not going to be ready. But after, you know, all of this that was happening, I've been, you know, kind of her go-to person when she has questions about it. That shows me that she is learning and she is opening up to it.
So
Yeah.
she's bringing, yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
What was she like during the time that all this was going on in the home? I mean, I know you'd mentioned that prior to contacting me, what it was like, but while it was going on, because it took a while.
Yeah. She
Um,
was mad, very mad. Like she thought that like the world had abandoned her. That's how she felt. She felt that family didn't want her. And I said, Mom, we're trying to protect you. You know, everybody's in their own space and all of this. And we would call her every single day, but it wasn't working for her. That wasn't enough because my mom is very attached to everybody in the family. And for her, mom is the person that sometimes she doesn't even have friends because she's just more into being with the family. So sometimes it worries me because I said, Mom, you have friends, stuff like that. She had a neighbor and that one she let in. But other people, she goes, no. And they're inviting you to go out. And she goes, no. She was just, minding whatever we do over here. She didn't want to miss out on anything. And I said, Mom, you're not going to miss out.
there's another side to that too. And I
Yeah.
can relate to that because my entire life, I've had very few friends, but thousands of acquaintances.
Uh-huh.
Because I never was the cul-de-sac guy that liked to hang out with the guys and grill it as I was older, and never hung out with a bunch of groups of guys in school and all this. And I don't know exactly why that was then. I think it was because I don't think people understood me much, but I was very sensitive to other people. And there were
Mm-hmm.
people that I knew I didn't want to be around, which later on, even now has caused me to practice what I call the good selfishness and taking myself out of low
Exactly.
vibrational situations or away from people who are like that. So I can maybe understand if she's that sensitive to people, it's hard to be around people sometimes. It's hard to go
Mhm.
to the grocery store sometimes.
Yeah.
It's tough. And my wife and I tell her because she doesn't go out very often either. It's like, because she's very sensitive and she just doesn't want to subject herself to that. And she goes through, and we both do, a process of, we have our own ways of protecting ourselves before we do,
Mm-hmm.
or before people come to the house, or just um,
Exactly.
for ourselves before we go out. And I would think if your mom's a highly sensitive person, that may be one of the reasons, or probably is one of the reasons.
Yeah, probably so.
So probably the best friends she has they're probably very open as well and understanding of that.
Mm-hmm.
Have there been any more? Because I know there were some darker elements in the house and on the land, but there were a lot that I remember were grateful to be let go. And this kind of delves a little, this kind of overlaps into the whole ghost thing, which it's not a ghost thing, but it's it's a consciousness thing and an energetic thing of taking that shadow portion of the human condition out of that light that can then return back and be pure.
Exactly.
And there were quite a few that really wanted to be released because of the consciousness. Not a ghost, people. It's the consciousness, which everything is made of energy, and consciousness is all energy. So it doesn't die. You can't banish it. You can't destroy it. There are places that it resides, and it always resides in the land, especially the shadowy and darker things. And I guess in Florida and everywhere, I've had a lot of people that have come to me that the land, it's not the home. It's not necessarily someone that has died in the house. It's energies from the land. And you can basically walk anywhere and be walking over a grave.
Exactly. That is so true.
So has she had any more of the darker things? I don't really consider the imps darker things. They're just little pests.
Yeah.
They are. They really are the idiots of the darkness world. But they're annoyances. They're nuisances.
Yeah.
But the darker things, has she had anything like that?
No,
Good.
not at all. She says that everything that she gets now, it's not to feel like she's felt that time, with the imps or everything that she had going on at that time. She says, no, now I see, because it's what it is, because you're still the beacon, and you're still going to feel, and you're going to have people show up, spirits show up. But she says it doesn't scare me. It doesn't, take a toll on me like it did that time. So it's different. And I said, well, that's what I needed to hear,
When these come in and she sees them, does she do anything to potentially help that energy? Now, my wife and I, every night, we light a candle on the hearth on our fireplace. And I say, okay, opening the door, all aboard, flames open. If you want, anything lower vibration, you either leave or I'm taking you outside. And I don't word it that way, but it's firm, but it's in a
loving way.
Yeah. And I don't even use the word loving, because love is used for everything from pizza to God. I use acceptance. It's acceptance of knowing, right, that energy, that whether it's person or whatever, it's contributed something, and we're all from the same place and the same source. So it's an acceptance and an appreciation, but there's also a firmness behind it. But with the lighter energies that maybe are seeking our help, does she do anything, or would she consider doing anything like that? And it's intention based as well. And it's no one way of doing things, but to help those energies. And that sounds silly to a lot of people, and I really don't care, but it's just the way it is. And so I give them an opportunity to return to that universal consciousness, that divine light. But if it's lower vibrational, it's like, I give you an opportunity if you want to go, but if you don't, back to the earth you go.
Yeah.
So
well, she normally now, if she feels something that needs to be dealt with, she does do the candles, and she does her praying with the Catholic side of it. So she does her praying and, her wishes and all that. And she does it with the white candle.
Good. And if she's praying, even if it's the Catholic side, if it's with the proper intention, that's
exactly.
That's
and she's even doing that with her ancestors, because she says, I'm trying to cleanse every past, anything that, is attached to me because of the past of my ancestors. So she's doing that too.
Great. And it's scientifically proven that things that happen to our ancestors that are traumatic in the past, they pass forward. I see it as cords when I journey.
Yeah.
And some are light cords, which are good cords. And there are a lot of light cords. But there are some of those light cords that I've seen that have been encrusted, or I think of a barber's pole wrapped with the dark cords, things that had happened. So it's light on the other end, but it's also darkness, or it's not black. It's sort of a yuckiest, greenish, brownish color, but it can go back hundreds or more years. And scientifically, it's been proven that traumatic things that have happened to others and down the ancestral line, it literally changes the DNA.
Yeah.
And by the time it gets to someone like your mom or yourself or me, in our generation, in our time, it can manifest itself in, say, like with the problem of having children, issues with conceiving or having stillborn or miscarriages, something that carried forward through the maternal line.
Mm-hmm. One of the things I want to mention is that when you did the cleansing of the imps,
Mm-hmm.
you went through a whole lot that day. I mean, that was like, you even said it yourself that you encountered things that you had never seen before. Yeah. And the one that was taking you through that, because I know that you use your angels, Michael, Sekiel.
Yeah, Jibril or Gabriel,
Yeah.
Raphael. I call them essences. Michael is always first one I call upon for protection and guidance and strength.
Mm-hmm.
Jibril for communication and understanding and discernment.
Uh-huh.
Zadkiel doesn't show up as much, but when he does, I know it's serious.
Uh-huh.
And I call Raphael my compadre because he's the
right. The healing.
Yeah, and he uses from the very beginning humor, but they are there for you and will comfort you and get you to a place of understanding with something that you know. It's not to create fear. So when I read this, they caused all this great fear and people bowed down. Early on in a journey, they said, "Don't you dare bow." And it wasn't those exact words, but it's like, "No, we're here for you. You're not here for us. We're here for you." But yeah, there were quite a few. And I know within your mom's home, I know Michael was a big part. I believe Jofiel was too, wasn't she?
Yes.
I know there were several sigils that were placed, and I still have those sigils.
Uh-huh.
But, because I had not known those before. And they're their sigils, protection and sealing things away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The day that you did the walkthrough for the cleansing, actually, for the things that were happening in her house and they were underground, before you went in, Michael had told you, do not descend into the dark realm. And not yet. He said, not yet. And
I've
then,
been there since, I'll tell you.
yeah. And then it says, do not fear what you see inside. That's what he told you. And he told you these words, light does not destroy light.
Right.
And you took this as a signal to enter the home. That's when you descended. So
yeah,
then
I do remember a swirl of chaos in the house at the first.
And then when you were in the room, you saw Satkil, and normally he holds an orb filled with floating lights and cloudy colors. And this time he did a concave shaped object in the palm of his hand, and he gave it to you. And that's what you took with you at that time.
Yeah.
And then
the first time I encountered Zadkiel, the orb was actually the way I understood it. And I'm not always told exactly. It's not like they speak sometimes it's like a telepathic thing.
Yeah.
And like you say, sometimes it's just a knowing. It was a orb filled with energies, or if you want to call them souls, I don't call them souls, but that were being held, that were not ready to be released yet.
Mm-hmm.
The first time I encountered him, he was very imposing and said nothing and just stood and held that. But yeah, he doesn't show up much. And Azrael is another one. He's the angel of death. And if you look him up, he's sort of known as the angel. He's known as the angel of death. But I've had him in other journeys where he's there as a protector. So there's no clear-cut, defined reason for each of the essences to be there.
One thing that Sepkil told you when you came out of the underground, he said, remember, everything is fluid. Light, darkness, everything is fluid.
Right.
You wrote that in your journal thing.
Yeah, like time. Yeah, it is. It's fluid, and they are forms of energy, and they have to be in balance also. Light and darkness. I look at the light and darkness as they're two polar opposites. But in the center is a thin line of gray, and that's where we are, shadow. It's a mix of both. And if there's an imbalance in that, and there is a big imbalance, there's an imbalance within individuals, and that is fluid in that it transfers to others. It's like I said in the last podcast, it's like a butterfly effect. And without that balance, and this goes far beyond our universe, but if there's a slight imbalance within one, it transfers and is fluid and affects all of the others.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess with your knowing of things and with your sensitivity and your mom's sense, I feel fairly certain that that is part of what you're meant to be doing as well.
Mm-hmm.
I know being sensitive is a difficult way to live. It is a blessing and a curse.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever
One thing,
thought to yourself, sure wish I didn't have this, life would be so much easier.
yeah, in a sense, I didn't feel that way that, that, oh my God, this is happening to me. Da, da, da. No, I always saw it as a blessing, really. The thing was that I didn't know how to deal with it. That was
Being
my
so
only concern. But other than that, I did know that everything was a blessing, and every knowledge, everything that I encountered in life was a blessing, a learning.
it is a blessing to
Hmm.
see things that are difficult. They're not most pleasant is harder to accept or harder to live with or deal with than seeing something good, a good knowing.
Hmm.
And that's what I mean by blessing and a curse.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to point out was that when you were talking about the fluid,
Hmm.
you also mentioned that every power outlet is an entry into the home.
Yeah.
Everything plugged into an outlet, specifically televisions, computers, serves as a portal of sorts of energies, both positive and negative.
Hmm.
So knowing that, Zakil pinpointed that and said, know that darkness can only enter if invited or if carried. So which means if your vibrations are really low, it brings in the negative.
Yes.
So I would like to pinpoint that for the people to know that it is a fact. My mom went through it. And I think that's the only thing that you really need. Keep vibration high.
Do you and
And
your mom do anything like if you have visitors and they have lower vibrations and you know it, do you do anything to preemptively prepare your home or
Mhm.
afterwards after they leave?
Before and after.
Good. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. It's important for people to know that people do carry those things and they can, whether you're out somewhere or whether they come into your home, they carry those low vibrations and it's so easy to pick those up if you're not aware of it.
That's right.
So that's great to hear that you do that, that you both do that. So she makes a practice of doing that too now.
Yes, she does. Yes,
So
she
she's
does.
come a long way then.
Yes, she has.
That's great. I'm so proud of her. And both of you, I had no idea because I believe most of the conversations during that time were with you through email.
Uh-huh.
This was going on, and I had no idea of your background and the lineage of
Uh-huh.
the not intuitiveness, but well, I guess that too. But my last podcast, I mentioned, man, don't trifle with the woman's intuition because it's, there's something to that. That gut feeling is what people need to listen to and not brush aside. Do you try to educate others with what you know?
Yes, I
Yeah.
do. And I find the time to do so because I don't put myself out there, but when I see the window of opportunity, I go for it.
Yeah.
And I see that helps. In that case, I'm thinking that I'm going about the intuition that I received at that time,
Hmm.
and then I go for it, and it helps really, really much.
Yeah.
So I have been doing that. But
Yeah.
you have to be skeptical. Some people are not going to receive. So that's when you say, nope, I can't talk about this today, or I can't take of it now. But then there will come a time that you will have that opportunity with that same person. And that's your call right there.
And sometimes saying nothing,
Uh-huh.
someone's in a low vibrational place and you recognize it and you're aware of it.
Mm-hmm.
If you just acknowledge them, if they're going on a rant, for instance, or they're just angry about something, if you acknowledge them, when you don't respond, it causes them to go, why didn't they respond? And that causes them to then think. You never know how that sometimes saying nothing is much stronger than saying anything. It's like just planting a seed. So, and there's so many ways to do that. You should really think about doing something to reach more people because you've got a lot of wisdom and knowing and awareness of things that you can present that are different because everybody presents it different. Everybody's able to help in different ways, but it's for the same reason and it's providing a betterment to people.
Exactly.
If people want to contact you, are you open to that? And
Yeah.
if so, how would they contact you?
Well, they can do the email, carefulwings@gmail.
Okay.
I will listen and I will answer.
Great.
The other thing I wanted to leave your advice and your resolve of things. One of the things that stood out to me was when you said, be a vessel for the light of the divine and help those who seek you out. Also, be aware that you are in control of what you allow in and what you deny.
Yes.
Whether it be your mind or your front door, you are complete control of that. It's the only form of selfishness that is good. Yeah.
Oh, I'd forgotten about that but yeah, that's so right. People do have complete control of what they want to choose to feed something negative or to feed something positive,
Exactly.
and it's up to us in this realm right here where we live. We're in control of that. It's something that everyone can do one little step at a time. So careful wings.
At Gmail.
Gotcha. I will post that. And please, everyone, if you want, contact Mimi. And I tell you, she's a great resource and she's a good person and she'll help you out best she can. We don't always have all the answers because they don't give yes and no answers. The divine doesn't, but we do what we can as best we can. I want to thank Mimi for being here. And I hope to have you back again. I'd love to have Carmen, your mom, on at some point when we get over her microphone shyness.
Someday.
Yeah, I have a feeling that she would be quite a character to talk to.
Yeah.
And that would be great. And I do want to get down there and partake in the meal one.
That she is still offering. Yes, she will.
All right. Well, I want to thank everyone for joining me and joining Mimi here on the podcast. Please, again, contact her if you like, and you can contact me also at everydayshaman.net. And until the next episode, thank you for listening, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks.
Thanks, Mimi. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Everyday Shaman. Please join me each week as we will explore new topics that I hope will inspire, educate, astound, and possibly confound listeners. If you have topic suggestions, if anything in this episode resonated with you, or you care to be a guest, I'd love to hear from you. You can contact me through my website, www.everydayshaman.net, or email me at jeffreybrunk@everydayshaman.net. You can also find my personal memoir, The Everyday Shaman, One Man's Journey into the Miraculous, on my website and on Amazon.com.